Today I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about using figurative language in your writing. You can use figurative language in any style of writing, but what we're going to talk about today specifically refers to creative writing, narrative, short stories, fiction. Okay, so let's jump into it. So what is figurative language? The definition is that figurative language is language that should not be taken literally, but uses figures of speech to convey meaning. So should not be taken literally. Let me get my pen out here. Should not be taken literally. Figures of speech include things like similes, personification, alliteration, and metaphors. Notice they spell out an acronym. The acronym is SPAM. Okay, similes, as a reminder, I realize that you guys probably already know this, but let's just do a quick refresher. Similes are comparisons using the words like or as. Personification is when you give human characteristics to non-human things. Alliteration is the repetition of beginning consonant sounds. So this would be like your Sally sold seashells by the seashore, right? And then metaphors, similar to similes, metaphors are comparisons that do not use like or as, but are straight up calling something else. So she's a bear in the morning, or that kind of thing. Okay, so we are going to now give some examples. The examples that I'm using in this video are from literature that you may be familiar with. This passage specifically is from the Hunger Games. Okay, so I'm going to read the passage, and as I read, I want you guys in your heads to see if you can pick out the various figures of speech as I go through. Okay, so again, Hunger Games, page 29. So right at the very beginning of the book. When I passed the baker's, the smell of fresh bread was so overwhelming I felt dizzy. The ovens were in the back, and a golden glow spilled out the open kitchen door. I stood mesmerized by the heat and the luscious scent until the rain interfered, running its icy fingers down my back, forcing me back to life. I lifted the lid to the baker's trash bin and found it spotlessly, heartlessly bare. All right, so let's see if we can pull out some examples of figurative language. The ones that I notice right off the bat are the alliteration. Okay, so I'm going to use alliteration with the color green. So the alliteration I noticed, so we've got baker and bread. You also have got the golden glow, out the open kitchen door. Let's see. The rain running. Okay. Lifted the lid back to life. Okay. The baker's bin, bare. Right. All of this, these repetition of these opening sounds or these first sounds of the word, kind of give the text almost a rhythm when you read it. It's very fluid. It reads very easily because you kind of develop this rhythm from the alliteration that's being used. It also draws your attention to those various passages and almost gives you an additional signal that they are in some way important, or it helps you connect with the words that are being used. Okay. The next thing I noticed was personification. I'm going to use personification in blue. Now remember, personification is where we are looking for things that are being given human elements but are not actually human. So let's see. Here I noticed, where is it? The icy fingers. Running its icy fingers down my back. The rain. Okay, the rain is running. That's another alliteration, rain running. Its icy fingers down my back. Okay. Again, it kind of gives you this indication, or this draws your attention to what she's actually feeling as she's standing there. It's not just that it's raining and she's wet. She can feel icy fingers from the cold, from the wet, running down her back. That, I think that's it as far as figurative language goes. However, I do want to pull in the idea of imagery. Now, there's another video at a different station that talks about imagery, but remember, imagery is where we involve scent description. So details or description in the text that is appealing to your senses. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to read it again, and I'm going to circle the various things that draw your senses in. Okay, so when I passed the bakers, the smell of fresh bread was so overwhelming, I felt dizzy. Okay, so smell, feel. The ovens were in the back, and a golden glow spilled out the open kitchen door. So that's a sight. I stood mesmerized by the heat. That's a feel again. And the luscious scent, again, that is going to be smell. Until the rain interfered, running its icy fingers down my back. That again is feel. I lifted the lid to the baker's trash bin and found it spotlessly, heartlessly bare. So again, that is going to be sight, right? So in one passage that's a paragraph long, we get a couple references to smell, we get a couple references to feel, we get a couple references to see. So again, really good job by Suzanne Collins of integrating that idea of imagery. Okay, let's do another example. This is, oh, it looks like it got cut off. This is also from the Hunger Games. It looks like it got cut off at the bottom, but that's okay. It'll give us enough. Okay, again, as I read through, we're going to go through and pick out the examples of figurative language. All right. The train finally began to slow, and suddenly bright light floods the compartment. We can't help it. Both PETA and I run to the window to see what we've only seen on television, the capital, the ruling city of Panem. The cameras haven't lied about its grandeur. If anything, they have not quite captured the magnificence of the glistening buildings in a rainbow of hues that tower into the air, the shiny cars that roll down the wide paved streets, the oddly dressed people with bizarre hair and painted faces who have never missed a meal. All the colors seem artificial. The pinks too deep, the greens too bright, the yellows painful to the eyes, like the flat round discs of hard candy we can never afford. That's how the end of that sentence goes, where it gets cut off. Like the flat round discs of hard candy we can never afford. All right, so let's start with alliteration again. Remember, alliteration is blue. So the train finally begins to slow. Suddenly the bright light. Now this, it's not alliteration. It's a different, well, it's sort of alliteration. It's a different type where you're actually repeating a middle sound instead of a beginning sound. But it rhymes, right? So it draws your attention in. Let's see. If anything, magnificence of the glistening buildings, rainbow hues, the tower in the air, the shiny cars that roll down the wide paved streets, the oddly dressed people, bizarre hair and painted faces that have never missed a meal. All the colors seem artificial. The flat round. Okay, so not a whole lot of alliteration in this one, not nearly as much as what we saw before. But the place where we do see alliteration is where it draws a distinction or something that's different, right? The oddly dressed people with bizarre hair and painted faces who have never missed a meal, which suggests that they are healthy, they are well fed, and stands in contrast with what PETA and what Katniss have experienced in their home. Okay, so let's do, I think I did personification in green, right? Let's see. We went to the window, ruling city of Panem. The cameras haven't lied about its grandeur. Okay, cameras haven't lied. Cameras don't lie. They're not, they can't lie. So that's a personification. Let's see. And then the last one that I want to draw your attention to. There is a lot of imagery again. So let's do imagery really quickly. Let's see. I run. Okay, so this action idea. Bright light floods the compartment. So that's a see thing, right? To see what we've only seen on television. If anything, they have not quite captured the magnificence. So it's all about what she's seen. The rainbow of hues seen, right? Oddly dressed people with bizarre hair and painted faces who've never missed a meal. The colors seem artificial. So all of this is see, what she's seen. And then the last one, I'll use yellow, is we're going to do a simile. There's a simile at the very end. All the colors seem artificial. The pink's too deep, the green's too bright, the yellow's painful to the eyes, like the flat round discs of hard candy we can never afford. So the idea that there's something not quite real or not quite true about everything that they're seeing. It seems artificial or fake, like the dye that's used to color the different candies, right? All right, next. Okay, so this, I'm a little bit reticent to share this, but I will anyway. This is an example from my book that pulls out similes, personification, alliteration, and metaphors. So I want to just move that over so I can see it. All right, so this is something that I have written. And again, we're looking for the four types of the four types of figurative language. All right, this is straight from my book. I wrote this a few days ago. Once she'd cleared the corner, she ran into the girls' locker room, shut herself into the bathroom stall, and collapsed on the floor. A flood gushed forth as heart-wrenching, body-convulsing sobs. She squeezed her eyes shut against the harsh fluorescent light, drowning in her own tears. In the 10 months since she'd lost her mom, she had never missed her more, never felt more alone. All she wanted was to crawl into her mother's lap and hear her mother tell her that everything would be okay. The reality that Millie would never again experience the comfort of her mother's embrace was as heartbreaking as Koa's betrayal. She wasn't sure how long she sat on the grimy bathroom floor, feeling like garbage left on the curb for too long. No one heard her, no one came for her. Her body and her will had both turned to jello, and the idea of pulling herself up, literally and figuratively, seemed like an insurmountable task. So she just sat there and wept. Millie had lost all sense of time when she realized she was cold. The hard tile floor and sterile tile wall was biting, goosebumps appearing on her skin, her convulsing sobs turning to chattering teeth. She pushed herself off the floor, the task taking all the energy she had. Stumbling out of the stall, Millie made her way to a sink, where a stranger with red, swollen eyes, hollow cheeks, and mussed hair stared back at her from the mirror. She turned on the water, letting it run until it warmed from anyway, and then it goes on. So, all right, so let's see if we can find examples of figurative language in this. We will start with metaphors because there are a couple. Let's see. Let me find the metaphor. Let's see. Okay, maybe we won't start with metaphor because now I can't find it. Turned to jello. Her body and her will had both turned to jello. So it doesn't say her body and her will were like jello. It says they had become jello. Okay, so there's no like or as involved there, just that it is jello. So that tells us that it's a metaphor, not a simile. There is a simile right there earlier though, feeling like garbage left on the curb for too long. Okay, like she's been out in the cold, discarded, forgotten, right? There are a few examples of personification as well. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. Sorry. I don't know how to undo that. I've got personification over here in yellow, or in purple, but I don't actually have a purple pen that I can use. So I'll just use black. A flood gushed forth. That is, floods don't gush, right? Let's see. Drowning in her own tears. Let's see. The hard tile floor and sterile tile wall were biting. They obviously can't actually bite. The stranger, right? A stranger stared back at her from the mirror. Okay, all of that is examples of personification. I also found another simile over here. The reality that Millie would never again experience the comfort of her mother's embrace was as heartbreaking as Koa's betrayal. So she's comparing what she's just barely experienced with her boyfriend, betraying her. And I'm not going to tell you how, because you have to read the book to find out, as being as heartbreaking as when she actually lost her mother. And then alliteration is the last one. So we'll see if we can find some examples of alliteration. Shut herself in the stall. Squeezed shut. Months. Mom missed more. Let's see. Grimy, garbage. Let's see. I think that's a good start. Stumbling out of the stall, made her way to the sink, where stranger. Okay, all of those swollen. Yep, all of those would be examples of just that repeated beginning. All right, next. Your turn. Okay, what I want you to do, and what you will be doing in the Canvas assignment that's attached to this video, is you're actually going to do exactly what I just did. Except you're actually going to write it. Okay, so pretend, here's the picture. Looks like a messy bedroom. Pretend that this is part of the setting of your story. Come up with statements about this picture, one for each of the 4 types of figurative language that we've talked about. Okay, so a simile, an example of personification, alliteration, and metaphor. Okay, so you are using this picture and then writing 4 examples of these individual types of figurative language about that picture. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video for a minute, do the assignment, and then you're actually going to move on and do another one as well. Okay, so by the time you're done with the activity for this video, you will have done 4 sentences that apply to this picture, and then on the next, this picture as examples of figurative language. And then what I want you to do is I want you to go back to your own individual writing, your writing sample that you're working on for class, and give us, try to take these various types of figurative language that we've talked about and integrate them into your story. They add additional meaning. They add different layers and depths of meaning. So it's a very good exercise to try to make sure that you include them when you write your own creative writing. All right, nice job, guys. See you next time. You're going to do 4 sentences again that apply to this picture with the lightning and the lighthouse and the sea that looks eerily calm, although it shouldn't, right? And then we're going to stop right there. Okay, that's it. So 4 sentences for this picture, 4 sentences for